You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello and welcome to Force 13 Live. This is our live coverage on Typhoon Ampil. On the imagery there, we're looking at Ernesto right now, which is also active in the Atlantic. But come back over here and we've got myself, of course. My name's Nathan Foy and I'm here with the latest on this storm. With my team, we'll be talking about a bunch of things to do with Typhoon Ampil, mainly Ernesto on my left-hand side, Ampil on the right there, looking very powerful as a strong Category 3. Well, we will have a lot to talk about. It is heading towards Tokyo, and some late news from the last hour is that Tokyo has now entered a typhoon warning. Yes, they didn't actually have one up until the last hour. The JMA issuing a new warning there for Tokyo, along with most of the rest of the southeastern part of Japan underneath that warning. Alright then, we've got tons of things to talk about, obviously, and to show you on our stream today, but the main threat, of course, is Ampil heading towards land. There is obviously a hurricane warning as well in Bermuda ahead of course, Hurricane Ernesto. Let's see then if we can take a look at some cameras before we get going then. This is a viewpoint from Chiba, very close to where the storm Ampil, that is likely to make a close pass. And there's another viewpoint from a similar location right now. Let's see if we can take a look at some... Here's some imagery just showing how good the storm is looking in those latest frames. Still generally moving northwards, which it really needs to start turning a little bit further towards the northeast roundabout now if it's going to start to pull away. If it continues to move north, it could still theoretically make landfall, although we're not fully expecting that. We're joined by a lot of people, but I also want to bring you on board with our little feature here. We've got the flight simulator out showing you what it might look like inside Typhoon Ampil right now. And you can clearly see the eye wall, very well simulated. So we'll be checking in with that every so often. I'm also joined by my team, of course. We've got a lot of people here with us right now. We have... Jack, Maury, Ethan, and Charlie. Hello to all of you. Let's first talk to Ethan, because I'm sure you've got a lot to say about both of these storms right now. Ernesto or Ampil, take your pick. What do you want to talk about first?
I'll do Ernesto first, because I can
out of the way.
Pull up imagery on it. So here's a look at Ernesto as it appears from the Go 16 visible loop right now on my screen, Nathan.
Yep.
Sun is just setting over the storm right now, and you can see it looks a little bit organized. Of course, it's got winds right now, again, of 85 miles per hour, and a pressure, per the latest NHC advisory, of 972 millibars. We're expecting a new intermediate advisory, which is just a position update and intensity update at the top of the hour. I don't believe we do have recon in there, actually. So
yes,
we'll have to see what they find. But Ernesto is a fairly large hurricane. You know, we've seen hurricanes that are going to be a lot bigger than this, that are going to pass by Bermuda. But of course, as you said, Nathan, there is a hurricane warning in effect for Bermuda. Only about 36 to 48 hours until Ernesto passes very, very close to Bermuda. I'll take down the imagery here, and I'll put on the latest NHC's forecast cone, and you can see there's the island of Bermuda. And that is a very close pass, albeit it is past its peak intensity, thankfully. The The
Yep.
NHC is forecasting a peak of 110 miles per hour in 24 hours from now, and then some slight weakening as it passes Bermuda, primarily due to unfavorable conditions, cooler waters, increasing wind shear, the likes of that, the usual stuff.
I think the waters will
But
be fine there. Is it wind shear then, or what? I
I
didn't
believe
quite
so.
catch the discussion. I think what I saw them say was that conditions will be worsening, but I didn't quite catch why.
I think that it's probably because wind shear is going to rise, if I had to guess. And then, of course, once you get past Bermuda, it goes up and follows the normal front thing, which
Yep,
is
typical
every
recurving storm there.
yeah, yeah. And just looking at some things behind the scenes now, it does appear that some dry air might get entrained into the system
That's
as
been the
well as
case the
wind
whole
shear.
time.
Yeah,
They've been
yeah.
remarking on
Wind
that a
shear
lot.
right now, wind shear right now is 10 to 15 knots, and it's supposed to rise up to 20 to 25 knots tomorrow afternoon, Nathan.
Wow, I'm a bit surprised by that. But certainly a little bit more strengthening expected, perhaps slightly rapid. I mean, they're expecting a peak still of 110 miles per hour, high in Category 2. We'll
I
come
still
back.
wouldn't put it past. I still wouldn't put it past them the chance of it becoming obviously a major hurricane.
Welcome to the
Um,
Atlantic.
Yeah, but the chances I would say of that now that Ernesto seems to be taking its time is substantially less than what we were seeing, say, 24 hours ago.
All right, we'll
Either
have.
way, either way, there's just one thing I want to remark
Sure.
on this storm. It is going to be a fairly large hurricane whenever it hits Bermuda. So here's the forecasted wind radii, and you can see it grows considerably as it gets towards Bermuda. Just on my other screen here, right now the hurricane force winds at maximum extent, based on the latest NHC's full advisory, which came out at 5 p.m. Eastern. The hurricane force winds don't extend outwards at all on the southwest side, interesting, but it's 50 nautical miles on the northeast and southeast sides. At maximum extent, um, it looks like that it's going to be around 60 nautical miles to the southeast side at this forecast point right here when it's just southwest of Bermuda. So that's going to bring pretty much hurricane force winds to all of the island. So, when we look at all of these past hurricanes that have passed by Bermuda, you had Franklin last year. Um, just trying to think of a lot. There's been a lot that have passed by Bermuda recently. You had Teddy in 2020.
Fiona.
Um, but Fiona too. You had a lot of these big storms that passed by Bermuda, but they didn't bring as much hurricane force winds to Bermuda as this one will. This one's going to be a real close pass. I think
Yeah,
this is
they're
going to
going to get
be
battered.
the closest. I mean, besides Paulette in 2020, which I thought went directly over Bermuda, I think this is going to be the closest pass probably since 2016, and that was Nicole.
Nicole. That's interesting. Of course, there still could be some deviations in that track. We're looking at a split screen here. Ethan showing us the track of Ernesto there and the forecast. And on our left-hand panel, you can now see Ampil, that typhoon that's still very powerful, really looking very impressive on that satellite imagery. So we are in one of those situations where we're tracking multiple storms at the same time. Reminds me of 2018 when we had tons of that going on. At one point, there were 7 storms active when we were doing live coverage. And it is almost true this time around as well. I don't know who we were talking off the air about some of the other stuff that we wanted to get set up. I don't know if it was Jack or Charlie who's able to tell us about some other systems that are on the horizon. I don't know if they're.
I'm not sure if there are many systems that are on the horizon.
Well, I can tell you there are.
Other than the Hone,
Yeah, there are.
other than the Hone and the Eastpac one, but
There
Well,
is the Southern Hemisphere system.
That's right.
isn't there one? I believe there is one inverse in the Western Pacific.
Let me just clear this
yeah.
up for everyone. We have got a high chance of development for a southwest Indian Ocean storm now, which is quite
Yeah.
remarkable. We're giving that 70% chance. Meteo France have come out this evening and have, or this morning as it is now, and are projecting for it to become a fully fledged tropical cyclone. So that's what we're expecting. And in the Eastern Pacific / Central Pacific, yes, we are talking about the possibility of a Hone on the way. Ethan, you want to talk about that one?
Or, I mean, obviously I'm here. We'll go over to the full disk imagery here for the Eastern Pacific. And I would actually judge to say that there's 3 areas of interest right now. Obviously, you have the two that the NHC / Central Pacific Hurricane Center have marked. They're both at 60%, may I add. You've got this massive thunderstorms over here. That's going to become maybe a brief-lived tropical cyclone in this orange area. And then you have this mass over here. This could also become a short-lived tropical storm. One thing that is for certain about all of these systems that we're talking about, including the one in the southern hemisphere, they're all going to be extremely weak. They aren't going to gain any sort of a significant intensity. Sure, might they get up towards 50, 60 miles an hour? Sure. You know, there's always that off chance. Sheer storms can easily do that.
Yeah.
But anything past that, you know, maybe 65, but anything past that, I wouldn't really put too high of a bet on. But I would gauge that there's also this area of interest right here, just to the right of the Central Pacific one, that could also become a brief-lived tropical cyclone. Now, what's going to happen in particular here in the Central Pacific is this first system is going to move over here and is generally going to be in this favorable area and might develop, might not. This system to its east is going to remain in this general area for about the next 2 days or so, and then kind of follow its brother on a bit of a northerly forecast track. That too could also become a brief-lived tropical storm, but not really too certain on anything just yet. That's why we're kind of just watching it and seeing how these things are going to unfold, and too early to say what kind of impact this is going to have on the Hawaiian Islands too. Obviously, this might have an impact on the trade winds. You know that's usual for this kind of systems. But maybe surf beyond that for the Hawaiian Islands, maybe. But anything beyond that for the Hawaiian Islands, I wouldn't be too worried about these at all.
Maybe. Again, here's a crude look at what the eye of Ampil might look like right now through the flight simulator there. Looking quite impressive. But let's take a look at what's actually going on right now. These are some of our viewpoints in Japan there on the right-hand side. Some live cameras there all along the southeastern peninsula, which is likely to get some serious winds a little bit later. On the left-hand side are live recent wind readings from the region. I thought my microphone was off then for a minute. So you can see that those numbers obviously look very low, but they're all in meters per second. So it takes a little bit of translating, but I can tell you so far that the highest winds that have been recorded so far, 36 miles per hour, and the highest wind gust so far, I think, was about 65 or 67 miles per hour. And that is on that island at the bottom there, or in fact maybe the one even below that one, the one closest to the storm itself. But some of those areas there, I mean, oranges, that is like tropical depression, 30 miles per hour plus. So that gives you a little bit of an idea on what you're looking at there. So in general, wind's still very calm, but you can see those beach areas there on those webcams. We'll be able to check and see in real time if we get a substantial surge in the area too. But if you just joined us, the news from the last hour is that they did issue typhoon warnings for Tokyo. And I've been suspended in midair there. Just show you quickly that National Hurricane Center forecast cone. And that obviously shows you the latest on Ernesto. Still could be a very powerful hurricane when it moves through Bermuda, although not quite as strong as first feared, but still pretty high up there.
There is one.
Okay,
There
yeah.
is one, to note, the recon on the Ernesto did just measure 100 knot flight winds.
Ooh, they're
Flight limit.
starting to get some more powerful winds then.
Yes, so they did just get that, and the pressure probably around 969 millibars.
Okay, that's interesting news.
Yeah, so that's what the recon received. They're currently flying throughout the storm right now, and they're in the northeastern eye wall.
Yep, obviously
that's-
the strongest side.
Well, that's quite obviously going to be a stronger storm. I'd bet probably intensity maybe around high end 90 miles an hour. And so you could either honestly tip it either way. I mean, they could either go with 90 or 100 miles an hour here. Either way, the storm is strengthening.
Yep. And again, we're talking about Ernesto there on the screen is Ampil. And the question, team, then, is Ampil strengthening? Still?
Probably, yeah, but it won't be for long.
Yeah, I think it still is. I think it still is a little, but it's starting to level off a little
But
bit.
it's now starting to
not
get a
looking
cloud
so
cover
good.
on it. So
I would still bet it is strengthening,
it is,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it won't be for long. Land interaction will throw it right off.
Now, what I was
Yeah,
looking
and
at...
especially as it enters those colder sea surface temperatures too.
It's not
They're
going to be
not that cold, though.
land interaction.
No, I know.
Yeah.
So that's a problem, but they will be cold as it approaches towards land. If it like makes that recurve. There were
Yeah,
cold-
sea surface temperatures don't really drop off a cliff until 36 hours. It's got
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So it does have time. I'm just saying eventually.
Now, I forgot what I was going to... Oh, yes. One or two of the models, though, still have quite a bit more strengthening to reach its peak in about 6 hours' time. Although, given that the storm is already stronger than what the models have been predicting, I don't know how much we can rely on that.
I don't know. This storm, believe it or not, for how far north it is, it still has a little bit of time on its hands. Wind shear right now is incredibly low. It's almost nil, believe it or
Well,
not.
that's clear to see. It's clear to see.
And sea surface temperatures, it's over 29 to 30 degrees Celsius water, so it's got time. It's moving slowly, and it's got relative humidity it's all right. There might be some dry air problems in the area. That's the one problem that I can see, the one big issue. Maybe even a little bit of northerly wind shear as well. Other than that, I mean, it's just the storm's overall structure that's inhibiting it.
Live camera here with a built-in anemometer there in Miura on Kanagawa. Quite close to where the storm will be, although it will be on its weaker side. And you can see there the maximum winds it's captured is 18 meters per second. We're going to have someone like on the calculator beside us as well, converting that to miles per hour. If I recall, that's something like 40 miles per hour.
Dang on.
There we go. Let's take a look at another camera then, from the same place actually, the same kind of area. You can see a few flags there rustling about in that tree. And more towards the bigger populations, this is the view at Yokohama, looking out towards the bay by the looks of things. And already getting quite a bit of rain and very inclement looking conditions there, although we can't really see much else. And finally back in Tokyo, the is that the Sky Tree? Is that what it's called? Looking out there across all the buildings in the eastern side of the city there. Another clearly very wet scene over there in the middle of Japan's capital. Some very interesting viewpoints there, and we'll be continuing to look at those throughout the morning as we watch this situation unfold. The storm still has quite a few hours before it does get there. We are talking about maybe 6 hours before it makes its closest pass to Tokyo, and I think this is a 12-hour loop. So you could sort of do a little bit of joining the dots there to show you how it's moved in the last 12 hours. I might give you a little clue as to how fast it might move in the next 12 hours, although you would think it would accelerate a little bit.
Just want to point out that it's not entirely guaranteed that Tokyo will even get 50 knot plus winds.
That is true. That is true. And
I still think that most of the core hardcore winds, including even the typhoon sustained winds from Ampil, should actually remain offshore. If it's going to touch land, it's going to be those extreme, little 2 bits that extend outward
Yep.
towards the storm's forecast track. Those are the areas that's going to get maybe the typhoon force winds. Anything other than that, farther inland, I think it's going to be a little bit of a stretch to get anything above maybe 70 miles an hour from this storm. Of course, you're going to get the gusts closer to the coast, obviously. But anything sustaining winds, that's 1 minute or even 10 minutes sustained, let alone 1 minute. It's going to be hard to get anything really substantial from this storm. It's a close call, yes, but it's nothing like Faxai from 2019. That was a major typhoon slamming into these regions. That was coming in from the southeast and moving northwest. This isn't like that at all. This is going to be a very close call, and it's a reminder that typhoons this strong can strike the Tokyo area.
they sure can. I was looking at models earlier and suggesting that typhoon force winds will probably only graze the coast, only by 10 miles maybe. That was a GFS and the HWRF saying that earlier. Although what you were saying, I can't remember if we were already on the air or not when you said this, Ethan, but it's moving west of forecast, is that right?
Let me just double check. Because I know that, awkwardly enough, the way that I got this was on my phone. The Weather Channel has the GTWC forecast cone for Ampil and radar out of Japan. So, looking at that, and they kind of use data from the GTWC to plot their own forecast cone. And I'm looking now, and the center of the forecast, the center of Ampil is pretty much right on the edge of the forecast cone on the west side.
Whose cone is that, though? Because
GTWC.
But JTWC's cones are notoriously huge. We're seeing it just on my left here, and those cones are massive. Do you think they might be using the JMA cone instead? Because they're quite narrow.
I don't think it is, because it uses the JTWC's forecast points and intensities. I think that what they're doing is
Just
they
applied
are
the NHC values, maybe.
maybe, or maybe the JTWC's got some internal code that says, "Hey, this is the track error," and they just, because obviously the JTWC's forecast cone, as we know it, as we see it image-wise, is for the wind fields. It's not for the track forecast.
Yeah. We can show you some radar as well. There is the view of the storm getting into the area there. And if anything, it does look like actually north-northwest movement there. Well, that's quite fascinating. I think we've got Farhan with us right now as well. Hello.
Hello.
I don't know if you were ready for us, but
Well, I've been sitting idling here, just watching through the discussion that's going on. It's all very interesting. Obviously, I can't comment on the rest though, because North Atlantic is not my thing. But what I can say about Amphill is that it is an interesting thing to see develop, because every year, on every given year, you'll see a storm or two which form, and then the forecast cone comes out. and the Metro Tokyo area is within that uncertainty track area. And usually what happened is that it either ended up going way off to the east and north that it didn't really come close, or it does come close, but it's way too weak to really leave a significant impact. So this is kind of an interesting situation, both that it's close enough to have significant impact potentially, but also strong enough while doing so. And I overheard all the talk about how much impact when it comes to wind and rain will places like Tokyo and really just the whole that side of Honshu will actually get. Well, I can tell you that regardless of how much it will be, there will be lots of travel and work disruption in Japan here. They don't really take any chances with these kind of things over there, and so it's not going to be a pleasant Friday for quite a lot of people planning to have plans of work or whatever. Although I guess for those that have their appointment canceled, it means they have an extra weekend day, which I'm sure they would probably be appreciative of, even if it means that they're staying inside instead of, enjoying themselves at like a shrine or whatever.
It is going to be a close run thing, but definitely with what we've just been seeing, that north northwesterly movement, certainly looking interesting on that radar imagery there. And again, here's some other viewpoints right now, not too far away from the from where the storm is expected to impact the most. The good news about this is that it will be the western side of the eye that hits land, which is more likely to be the weaker side, but definitely producing very high amounts of rain as well, which in the area could produce above 200 millimeters and maybe double that at a worst case scenario. What we have seen on models is that tons of rain has been just offshore. Not much of it actually makes it far inland. Just wondering, with a little bit of skepticism about that. But let's just show you again that radar imagery, clearly showing a slight northwesterly movement there, which takes it closer and closer. And as a matter of fact, if you just extrapolate that last half hour, it will change back, but that takes it straight to Tokyo if it continues along that line. But it will definitely turn a little bit backwards, and it looks like it will be difficult to say whether there could potentially be a landfall for Chiba, which is that prefecture to the east, or whether it will just graze the coastline. Big question really is, where will the inner eye wall go? And you can just about see some of it now on that radar imagery.
There is that little bit of land that I could see that they just jot that little bit to the sea. If there's going to be a landfall, it's probably going to be that tiny little thing that juts out a little bit to the ocean compared to the rest of Honshu.
I did see somebody asking, when was the last landfall of a tropical cyclone in Japan?
Oh, any tropical cyclone?
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't have to look back very far.
Yeah, not long ago. Good
Well,
old
I think
Maria.
what it's meant to be said is in the Tokyo metro area, but I think whoever asked it just got a bit lost in typing and just said in general, in which, that question, to answer that question, it's Maria just a little bit ago, but I think what it's meant to be asked is this area, this metro Tokyo area.
I have actually made a little feature that we can watch along with our continued discussion on storms that did affect the area around Tokyo. Powerful typhoons that have affected the area. There's been quite a few. Only 2 of them managed to do it at Category 3 strength. The first one was a very long time ago in 1917. Still the most powerful typhoon to affect Tokyo. Then Helen in 1958.
It was 10.
Yep, Typhoon 10. And then Helen there, and Typhoon Georgia in 1959. It was a bad time for Japan these years. These weren't even the worst storms of those 2 years, 58 and 59, but those 2 affected Tokyo. Some video there of some of the damages from Georgia. And then a big gap to Typhoon Maon, which was the other major typhoon landfall in the Tokyo area. Category 3 at Kanagawa, and blew through very quickly there, extremely quickly. Very powerful rainfall by the looks of things on the northern side. Then Typhoon Mawar, a different one, August 25th, 2005. That was also a busy time of that year around the world. There it was, making its approach there, and then northeastwards again, moving through the Tokyo area. And then, of course, Typhoon Faxai in 2019. Ethan mentioned that not too long ago. And that was a big risk of, at one point, it was forecasted to make a Category 4 landfall, if I remember rightly.
I believe so.
Yeah.
It did miraculously weaken a fair bit just before landfall as a Category 2 in the end. And then it moved directly over Tokyo Bay and wound down quite quickly after that. And then, of course, Typhoon Hagibis followed in its footsteps, hit Shizuoka just a little bit further west on October 12th, and then pushed on northeastwards. Of course, Hagibis was another big one that we were tracking live on Force 13 back then, 5 years ago. And that was, I think, the last one that we've got in this sequence. And there you can clearly see all of the flooding damage that occurred in one particular area here. So a history, but the numbers are quite few. Not a massive amount of storms have made landfall, at least powerful ones, in the Tokyo area. But this could be one of those if it does just squeak a little bit further towards the west. I don't think we can rule out a landfall.
I don't think we can either. But regarding those Japan landfalls, I think if a storm is going to strike Japan, I think it's going to be further off towards the southwest. You know, we're thinking central to the southwestern portion of mainland Japan. That's going to be your main typhoon landfall hotspot, and I think history would show that. It's not unheard of to have a typhoon landfall this high up further north. But it's not too uncommon, and these kind of things do happen. NHC 90 miles an hour, 970 on Ernesto, by the way.
Okay, here's Ernesto, now a little bit stronger, and really no surprise on that advisory. That's very early.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. Wow.
They're half an hour early with that advisory.
I mean, you can get a Formula Recon pass in there.
90 mile per hour winds that they're running with, and a pressure of 970 millibars. Regrettably, I won't be able to update my bottom bar to reflect that. But obviously, still hurricane warning for Bermuda, of course. I'm sure everyone is aware of that by now. 970 millibars depicted by Recon. Feel free to send in your comments and questions right now as well. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we can take them live on the air. Dawson says, how come the Mediterranean Sea doesn't get many cyclones? Well, sea surface temperatures aren't quite as warm. The conditions aren't usually as favourable either. I mean, the Mediterranean Sea does border the Sahara, the very dry parts of North Africa, just like the easternmost part of the Atlantic as well. But medicanes do sometimes happen, and probably more than most people believe.
You were trapping one a few years ago, weren't you?
Ah. Was it a
that.
full-on medic? I can't even remember anymore.
Well, here's the thing. It was named, but like, because the Mediterranean is very unofficial, everyone up the wazoo have their own like name and classification system for it. So it's very hard to say actually whether or not it's an actual tropical cyclone or not.
Yeah, but yeah, I was there in Athens last year during that cyclone. Not there on a work event or anything like that. I was just there. Anyways, let's take a look back at a super close-up here of Typhoon Ampil as it gets even closer to the coast of Japan. Really impressive viewpoint here. In fact, I'll just come back to this camera in a moment and see if we can get a rapid scan view on that. And if we can, that would be nice. I'm sure we will be able to. In the meantime, there's some infrared views. Let's have another look at this then. And visible imagery there. Very impressive looking storm. Not the best quality, it has to be said, on this particular imagery. I'll go and find some better ones. Yes, Jack?
I'm just going to say I'm going to be leaving in 5 minutes.
Okay.
To the time, but if there's anything you want to look at that I have up right now, my stream, my camera.
Well, Jack's been showing us a bunch of things here as well. A nice little setup you've got there. We can't see all of it because it's obscured by some of our stuff, but
Yeah.
quality's gone down a little bit because of the signal. But there is some infrared imagery of the storm. And we've also been doing a live flight in the storm as well. This is sort of a crude look at what the eye wall of Ampil looks like right now. I'll have a little look around. And looking quite messy actually on these latest pictures. These aren't real though, but just an idea of what it might be like inside the storm. I'll be terminating that now because it's getting in the way. But we also are looking at some real viewpoints along the coast of Japan, and you can see one of those camera angles, the bottom one there, looking pretty overcast and a lot of rainfall by the looks of things there. Visibility is down. And again, on the left-hand side is the latest wind speeds that have been recorded in the area. I'm just going to see if that is actually still up to date here. See if we can magically reload that page. There we are. So there's just been an 18 meters per second sustained wind. And they've had at this location a maximum of 28. That's a wind gust, 28 meters per second, which is about 60 miles per hour. So fairly impressive there in terms of the winds so far. Let's cycle through all of these cameras now. First of all, beginning at one of the closest to the storm, Minamiboso in Chiba, on that peninsula that we were talking about earlier. Still looking relatively calm. Here's another one. That's the one we were looking at. I think this is actually the closest camera to the storm. And you can see inclement weather there. The other camera, I think, is in the area too. This is just a little bit further up the coast, not too far, still in Chiba. And you can definitely see some of those waves now. Be interesting to watch, continue watching this camera and ones like it to see if we do get a substantial surge. Comment there, when can we expect Ampil to make a right turn? Oh, we'd all like to know the answer to that. There's no real way of telling whether a storm is going to make its turn. We think it will at some point. I'm guessing the reason is it's going to get lifted up by a front. Would that be right, Ethan?
That, and it's going to go in the normal fashion up to the post-tropics.
Oh, there's a big weakness in the ridging.
Yep.
Yeah, big weakness. It was allowed to weaken quite a bit actually after Wukong and after the other storms that we recently had too. But what's pushing it west though is that the ridging is built in very prominently on the east. 1020 millibar high pressure system that's keeping the storm blocked to an extent. And it is very, very close margins with this. But we do expect at some point soon that we will start to see this turn. So Ethan, we were alluding to it earlier, but you think that the current wind estimate that we've given is mostly accurate?
Or which storm?
For Ampil right now, high-end category 3.
That would be what I would maintain for now. Obviously, there is some room to adjust that intensity both up and down in the coming hours, although it all depends on what the storm does. It did appear that its eye did become a little less circular, maybe around 21Z, although now that we're approaching 0Z now, the eye is becoming more circular again. The CDO is becoming much more organized, albeit with the cooler cloud tops, and the eye is going to be a little bit warmer this time around, I think. So maybe we see an intensity jump at 0Z, maybe not. I don't know. But my best guess right now for honestly determining a 0Z intensity, I can tell you now it's not going to be right away at 0Z. It's probably going to be an hour or two afterwards.
So what is the peak?
No, my intensity estimate for 0Z, which is in 20 minutes.
Ah. Well, there it is.
Of course, because I'd like to get as much data as I can flowing on through.
I think it's looking better on visible, it has to be said. I'm going to have to check the infrared in a second, but, you know, it's definitely one of those, it's almost the donut, the tire shape eye wall there. Massive amounts of dense clouds encircling the storm.
I mean, the eye is clearing out a little bit too.
Let's see if these images have an update. And if not, we will go to another infrared viewpoint. Yeah, not seeing much on those pictures right there. Let's show you this then. These are some more very recent pictures showing the movement of the storm. Does look like the western side is tugging away a little bit from the eastern side there in those latest frames, so it's certainly not a uniform eye wall in terms of the cloud tops, but very high convection on that northwestern side. Now, I did capture the eye temperature a little bit earlier, Ethan, on the build-up to this live stream. It's about 15 degrees Celsius.
That's not terrible. It's not terrible.
It's a very interesting noise, that. Now, if I was to draw a line here, well, maybe it's not fair, actually, because this is the mesoscale. It's only covering a very short time period. Let's go back to the full disk and get a longer range timestamp or time sequence and figure out just exactly which direction this storm is moving. Let's zoom right in on it again here. So there it is. And let's watch these frames again, certainly looking more rounded in those latest frames. And it would appear to be quite clear that it's made a northwestward turn for the time being. If I just draw that, extrapolate that out, that's 17 kilometers of movement in 2 hours, which would obviously be only 8.5 kilometers in 1 hour. That's about 5 miles. And the angle there, the satellite angle, makes it look like it's moving more northwest than it actually is. It is still only just a tad west of north, but the satellite angle makes it look like it's moving sort of like 320, 330 degrees when it's actually more like 345 or 350, which of course is what we're seeing on that radar. Let's see if we get a new radar frame here. So this is still a powerful high-end Category 3 storm. No new frames there. 125 mile per hour winds sustained is the estimate that we've given it right now. And still at this time, a slight northwestward jog.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
What's impressive?
There's a red crayon now in the East Pack.
Oh, so we got breaking news as it happens here, everyone. National Hurricane Center have increased the chances, and is that
New
another
AOI.
system? A new one.
Yep. Let me pull it up.
We've actually marked 4 in the Eastern Pacific.
Let's get the latest information. They say disorganized showers and thunderstorms with a wave off the southeastern coast of Mexico. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development, and a tropical depression is likely to form next week while moving away from the coast of Mexico. 10% in 48 hours, 70% in 7 days. And on the other one, it's 0-20. So 0% in 48 hours, 20% in the next 7 days.
Very interesting.
And I think that's that second thing that I was alluding to. Yeah,
I think it was.
there it is. And
Yeah.
I did think that if that second system is going to form, that middle one, I do think that it would actually form, unfortunately, in the Eastern Pacific.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Right there. Okay.
No news from the other hurricane center that we're wanting to see. Nothing from them yet.
And that's the Central Pacific Hurricane Center there. Well, if you've just joined us, this is the latest that we've got right now. Hurricane Ernesto on the left there, now a stronger 90 mile per hour, high-end Category 1. Looks like it will be getting towards Category 2 fairly soon. Pressure estimate was 970, I think, on that last update. And Typhoon Ampil, which is drawing ever nearer to the coast of southeastern Japan. Could it possibly make a landfall on Chiba? Well, it could be getting quite close. And of course, that would bring Tokyo towards typhoon force winds, possibly. The JMA issued a typhoon warning for Tokyo Metro about an hour and a half ago. This is Force 13 live coverage on this event as it unfolds, mainly talking about Typhoon Ampil, but there's tons of other stuff going on all around the world, actually. Not just those areas of interest in the Eastern Pacific, which of course we could be seeing Hone on the way, but also we could be seeing a storm in the southwest Indian Ocean. And here is the latest from Meteo France, showing out over the Indian Ocean this system that could end up developing into a fully fledged tropical cyclone. They are predicting it, although they only expect it to last a couple of days at most. In fact, I think that's only 1 day there that they've got it for. So if that system does form, it would be another surprise down there in the southwest Indian Ocean, because they are very much in off-season. And the way that the agencies and the international agencies categorize these things, they sort that they, in the southern hemisphere, they include anything that forms after July 1st, I think,
Yes.
as 2025 storms. So this would be the first storm of the 2025 season.
The Southwest Indian Ocean is interesting because it seems like in recent years it does tend to be the basin out of the three southern hemisphere basin to form early off-season storm. There was also, I think, also a case back in 2017. I can't remember the name of, but I honestly can't tell whether or not just because the basin in general, the Southeast Indian Ocean, is more conducive for early development, or is it because Meteorfront is actually competent in classifying storm? Because there is a lot of talk of how incompetent the Australian Bureau of Meteorology and the Fiji Metavy is at categorizing tropical cyclones. So I'm not sure which one of those two is really at play when it comes to the Southwest Indian Ocean forming off-season storms, and the other two southern hemisphere basins don't.
Careful what you say about those agencies, Farhan. But I certainly think that you're sort of right. I mean, the Meteo France, they used to. They really got their game up in the last few years, and I think they may actually be one of the best agencies now. Mori, you're showing us radar from Japan there, showing us the storm in a little bit more better clarity. The inner eye wall there, and lots of very heavy rain in some of those outer bands.
Yes, so I am noticing that there is some bands moving onshore now. Specifically there towards Tateyama City and Minamiboso City. Uh, Both of those places are experiencing some rain and will likely experience it as the system continues to move towards the north. We also see a few of these bands up higher in the mountains along these roads in all of these cities. Uh, that is in, I don't know which prefecture. Yeah, I gotta pull up a map of the prefectures, but I believe that would be Tokyo Prefecture.
Just trying to get you up on this bigger screen here, comparing it to those viewpoints there, which are in those areas that Maury's been talking about being affected by those first or the southerly bands. There's certainly some significant rain just moved through Tokyo there as well. Let's take a look at some of those cameras then. This is again Tokyo, looks like a little bit of brightness actually there. Yokohama, actually looking a bit clearer there as well at the moment, has to be said. So I think a rain band's just moved through and they're just on the other side of it. And again, these locations on the southern tip of Kanagawa, not far from the storm as well. And then there's this viewpoint with the live anemometer. Looks like they've gotten a maximum there of 19.3 meters per second, which is just a smidge above 40 miles per hour. That's probably a gust. I think it's the top one there that says 10.6. I think that's the sustained winds, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's this point, which, it's a good quality camera, so we might be looking at this one quite a bit. It's going to be very close to where the storm's expected to go now if it keeps going along this route. If it keeps deviating a little bit further west every time, it could end up right here. This is Katsura, which is a little bit further along the east coast of Chiba. It's a bit that it's a part of the coast that really sticks out, so certainly could be some significant impacts from this camera angle. So when do we think that the closest pass will actually occur, everyone?
Well, it's current movement. Well, I don't know what its current speed is, but from what I read when I go to bed about 6 hours ago, I was thinking maybe evening Japan time, but that information might be outdated now.
I think it'll be around late afternoon Japan time, like maybe around 4 or 5 p.m. Somewhere in that range.
I've just seen a new GFS run, which actually has taken the storm a bit further east. I'm not sure if that's going to be true, considering that the storm's doing the exact opposite of that right now. although it looks like it's slowed down as it has done this little northwest jog. So I do wonder whether it might be a little bit of a wobble or very tight oscillation loop kind of thing, and maybe it will start to make that turn shortly, but it's very difficult to know right now. You see, we're in a bit of a difficult position here because we're wondering whether to keep running the coverage for much longer or whether we should take a break. Time zones are a nightmare. And whether to come back and do another live event in a few hours or not, I've no idea at this point.
At least with this storm, it's actually unpredictable. It's not like gamey where we think it's certain and then the storm blew fast one on us. I'm still having nightmares with that one.
Oh, which one? The gamey?
Yes. Yes. Oh god, that is silly. I mean, it's still a horrible storm. I hear that the damage, especially in the Philippines, from the rainfall was massive.
Yes.
Still, but from our perspective, what it did when it was approaching Taiwan is just ridiculous. And I did not wish to ever experience such a stream ever again.
Now, there was someone in the chat earlier asking about distances to land. Every so often you see it on our bar there. That was from data from about probably 2 hours ago now. Give you some updated numbers. You can see a tiny island there on the western side of the eye wall in that orange zone. That's Mikurajima. That is currently 103 kilometers from the center of the storm. Miyake is the next island up, 118 kilometers. And then you've got a little gathering of islands there. One of them is Nijima, 155 kilometers away. Then the larger island, not far from the mainland, is Oshima. That's 166 kilometers. Tateyama, 172. Minami Boso, 178. And Kanagawa, 176. Katsura, 174 kilometers away. Tokyo is 246 kilometers from the center of the storm. If you recall from 2 hours ago when we did the positions last time, that it was a 284 at that point, and it's now gone down to 246. So that's 38 kilometers in about maybe 2.5 hours. So that's some interesting movement right there. Let's look back at Maury's picture right now, showing that latest radar once again. Or it was doing.
Yeah, there's this map. I'm not sure exactly what it's showing. It says hazardous wind potential nowcast. I think it's showing the probability for like high wind events or tornadoes within the Japan area. But I was just looking at that map. What we are looking at here is the radar of this storm. You can see some rain bands still moving through, and some intense rain bands, inner rain bands towards the center of the storm also continuing to develop, especially this one that is right there towards
Hachigo.
Yes, Hachijo. It enters right there and is currently heading towards the southeast. But yeah, the system continues to move toward the northwest, and I am expecting landfall soon, likely in the next 8 or so hours, I would say.
Now when you look at that loop there, towards the end it goes a little spoopy like that. That's because that's the nowcast feature from the JMA. That's actually a little forecasted radar loop at the end of that actual radar loop.
I was unsure about that, but if you look at what it looks like now, you can see this is currently the situation that we are
It's the
in.
current.
Where there's a band right outside of the center, and you can still see those bands moving towards Hachijo.
There's another view of that radar from the Force 13 website. You can have a look at that in your own time. And of course, we've got our automated streaming service active as well on our channel. That is also showing the latest imagery all around this storm. So a major situation as Ampil gets closer to Japan. It will be the whole southeastern part of Chiba will be under prolonged heavy rainfall pretty shortly.
I've been seeing a few videos on Twitter of people going out to the beach to film the big and rough surf over by their local area, which I have to say is it might be tempting to do that, but please be careful because although the storm isn't currently projected to actually make landfall, although we're not certain about that, it is still very much dangerous for you to be standing on shore very close to those rough surf. You just not know when a particularly big one will come and sweep you off your feet. It's very dangerous to do that, so please don't do that. Or at least be careful if you want to do that.
There's a live look at the two of those cameras, probably my preferred two right now. The bottom one there, very close to, well, the southern tip of Chiba, which is not too far away from the storm, of course, and a little bit further up the coast on the east side is the top picture showing live what the viewpoints are looking like. Visibility is going down, so I imagine that rain rate is going up. Now, how will the eye wall structure of Typhoon Ampil affect the Kanto region of Japan? Now, if I recall, that is the whole region that comprises the areas that are being affected. Although it's been a while since we've been dealing with these areas. Yeah, it is. So, you know, whether the eye wall actually impacts these areas, the inner eye wall where the strongest winds are, well, that's going to be the big question mark at the moment. But the way the radar is looking, it's a bit of bad news at the moment because the storm does appear to be getting closer than initially expected. Let's see if we can have a new visible image from one of the best sources there is. There it is. Certainly looking very beautiful on visible imagery. High-end category 3, 125 mile per hour winds sustained. It's just past 9 a.m. in Japan, and in Bermuda, obviously, ahead of Hurricane Ernesto, which is on the left-hand panel there. We're just moving it. There it is. So two big storms that we're currently watching right now. Ampil making its way towards the coast of Japan. Ernesto heading for Bermuda. Bermuda is in Atlantic Daylight Times. They're an hour ahead of Miami and the US East Coast. So the current time there is 9 p.m. Ernesto moving northeasterly, or will be very shortly. Currently 90 mile per hour winds. It's stronger than it was earlier, and an estimated pressure of 970 millibars. So back at some of these camera angles. This is another closer look there at Minami Boso in southern Chiba, and the trees don't seem to be moving very much there. So just a very wet scene more than anything else right now. And back to Tokyo, there's a live view there as well. Look how quickly those clouds are moving by. Ethan, are you still there? I was hoping we'd be able to
Evidently not.
speak to him for a moment.
Yeah, and
Evidently not.
he said that he's not there at the moment.
Well, I'm just checking, but someone said in the comments that they've reduced the chances of. Yes, they have. They've reduced the chances of that Central Pacific system to 50%.
Oh, there.
Never mind. Never mind then.
From 60 down to 50. Is that another big climb down in progress there? When will we get that Central Pacific storm? I don't know why they've actually reduced it. If they're going to go... well, I don't think they should have gone 60 in the first place, but if they did, since they did, I don't really think there's any reason that they should have lowered it, but lo and behold, down to 50%. There was some more comments there as well, I think. The ridge to the east is stronger than expected, pushing Ampil further north and a tad west. What are our thoughts? We were talking about that in the last hour. We agree. It's definitely what's happening. You know, the storm is moving slowly. It is definitely under that ridge's thumb right now, keeping that storm further west and slower than what it would have done without it. It would have obviously gone much further east and much more quickly. At some point it will round that corner. Will it happen too late though for parts of the coast which are now expecting typhoon force winds? About 2 hours ago, Tokyo was officially placed under a typhoon warning. They were wondering whether they might have been able to get away with just a gale advisory, but with the storm creeping closer than expected, they've gone all the way with that. And given how huge Tokyo is, the urban area, over 40 million population, still could, in theory, get typhoon conditions. Although it doesn't appear as though it would get winds as strong as what Tokyo would have got during Faxai in 2019. Of course, it was literally right next to Tokyo as a strong, I think still a category 2 by that point. So, in short, there are tons going on in the tropics. Let's go to the 4-panel view and show you the multitude of things that we've got right now. Well, it's in a bit of an odd order, so we'll start top left there. That's that latest National Hurricane Center cone showing Ernesto's track towards Bermuda, which is under a hurricane warning. You can also see Newfoundland towards the end of that cone there. Could get impacted with hurricane force winds on Monday as the storm slowly turns post-tropical. Top right there, of course, is latest frames of Ampil moving northwards. I don't know if that's fully up to date, that imagery, but if it is, the cloud tops don't look quite as good as they were earlier. I'll have to double check on that one. In fact, let me just see if I can push the button now and see if we've got any new frames there. Whilst we wait on that, bottom right hand side there, of course, is Ernesto once again, and you can see the eyes starting to become a little bit clearer, but it is still struggling with a lot of dry air. Eastern side is now the most prominent, with a massive burst of convection in the last hour or two. And then on the left hand side is, of course, the JTWC forecast, which is obviously showing a curve, but will it be too little too late? Already apparently moving west of that forecast cone. I don't know if someone wanted to break in just then.
Saying that I'm back,
It's Ethan.
and I am already aware of it. Quite laughable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. Are we actually surprised, though?
I am a little bit.
Perhaps. Let's see if there's some new observations then from around the storm. We're just reloading that page. And nope, nothing at this time. Quite a few areas there getting over 10 meters per second winds, including on the mainland, 11 actually near Yokohama. So that is trying to figure out how strong those winds are again. Probably about 30 miles per hour. So a few interesting wind readings there. Curiously, in fact, Chiba not entering those kinds of numbers yet. The stronger winds appear to be a little bit further west at the moment. Not sure what's causing that. But there are some live viewpoints looking out into the face of this storm. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and comment there that the JTWC are expecting Ampil to become a Category 4. They were earlier. They are not, I don't think, on their latest forecast anymore. No, they are now forecasting 125, which we think it already is. And you'll be amazed by this, Ethan. They actually did a position update, the JTWC, at 21Z, which is a while ago now, I know, but they actually had that position update east of their center line.
Interesting.
That's
So something's not making sense around here. It is apparently going west of the center line, and I think, yeah, that. Hold on. Let me figure this out. So I've got a nice close-up of their cone now, and let me just get the latest full position of this storm. And center position round about 33.6 north, 140.7 east. And I've lost my JWC tab, but there it is. 33.6, 140.7. So that puts it only a few miles west of the center line. So that's interesting. Even that pull towards the northwest is keeping it quite close to that center line from the data that we're getting here, Ethan.
I guess so. I'm not sure. It's quite close.
But it is west of forecast at this point. So make of that what you will. There's that full JTWC cone there on Maury's screen. What are you showing us right now, Ethan? You're still with Ernesto, I thought so. And
I think I'm going to have to leave here very shortly.
Alright. And we can show you some more imagery here as well. Another new frame from the Himawari 9 satellite. It's starting to look very oblong-like, don't you think?
Ernesto is? Yeah.
No, well, both of them then, in that case. It's looking quite ovular. Is that the right word? Oval-like. I'm just not sure if it's the angle of the picture or whether it's been a bit more stretched east to west. But that is one of the latest images of the storm right now. Still a very powerful high-end Category 3. And that is Ampil, which is the storm that we're currently tracking. But of course, two storms active right now with major warnings out there. Of course, hurricane warning for Bermuda. We'll probably be doing some sort of coverage when the storm arrives there as well. And of course, we've still got other areas of interest around the world as well, which we'll be watching very closely. There's some more views of Ernesto, looking quite decent. Let's see if we can get some more comments and questions right now. I know apparently there's been an earthquake in Taiwan. Just going to get some further information on that one. Always seems to be happening when something's going on. So yes, there's been a 6.1 earthquake 26 kilometers southeast of Hualien City, Taiwan. It is a quite shallow quake, 15.4 kilometers, and so that will certainly have been felt, and probably something to do with that previous big earthquake that we saw much earlier in the year, which we also did coverage on there as well. So definitely a lot going on in this world of ours, that's absolutely for certain. We've got 3, maybe even 4 areas of interest in the Eastern Pacific. There is also another area of interest that we've designated off the east coast of Taiwan for something that could develop in that area near the southernmost Ryukyu Islands in the next few days. It will eventually maybe stall a little bit and then turn northwestwards towards the East China Sea. So all of these areas getting so much activity right now. Of course, the Atlantic has had one storm after another, and now the southwest Indian Ocean looks like it's going to be joining in as well, with a new area of, well, an area of interest we've been tracking for quite a while. But once again, looking at Meteo France here, there is the track of a new potential tropical storm. They're expecting it to peak briefly as a tropical storm for 24 hours or less, and that would be any kind of cyclone out of that would be a surprise. Very rare, but not unknown for earthquakes, for storms like that to form in the month of August. It's been 1 or 2, and that is heading out towards the southwest. But the main feature obviously is still Ampil, which we're continuing to watch with all of those cameras active as well. We're not seeing that much going on in those pictures at the moment, but let's home in on Katsura once again, and I think one of the best viewpoints to show the waves, certainly getting some significant waves pushing on in there. Let's get some more comments then. Do we think 98W would have a chance of strengthening? Is that the one near Taiwan? I've not been keeping track of the invest designations.
Okay.
I would say I can't think of any others that would be out there, but the JTWC can tag all kinds of crazy stuff over there that doesn't have a hope in hell of forming. I will just double check that. 98W is near 97W, and I don't know which is which there, and one of them will be that system that I've been talking about. And August is extremely active, definitely for storm tracking, says Gaming with Trip NH1. Well, yeah, it's been rather busy. It's not necessarily the amount of storms, it's that every storm pretty much has been hitting land. Usually, quite often, we'll see a lot of... I mean, look at the Atlantic this year. Every storm has hit land, hasn't it? 5 out of 5.
Yeah, every storm's made a landfall.
And 3 3 hurricanes out of 5. I was going to say 3 hurricane landfalls out of 5, but we're not there yet. Ernesto could still do that on Bermuda or even in Canada before it turns post-tropical. Let's see if we can get some new radar frames then as we continue to watch this storm draw nearer. Yes, there's a new frame there. And you can see it is still, looks like it's on that line, drawing a very fine line. Still possibly just slightly west of north there. Just a very small amount. And one would hope that that northeastward turn happens pretty soon. It all depends on what that ridging is doing off to its east. A 1020 millibar high pressure system there, which is shunting this storm further west and not giving it much of a choice, and moving relatively slowly as a result. Movement speed right now is probably something like maybe 10 miles per hour. Let's go and look at this other camera viewpoint here as well. Not much of an angle to see much on that one. It's quite calm actually. But then we have this camera. Winds have been light here, but at times there's been some really what look like heavy rainfall at this location. Once again, these are very close to the closest points on the mainland, at least, from the storm. So these places here, Chiba predominantly, are going to be affected first, and probably most severely. Again, there's that view from Miura on the southern tip of Kanagawa with the anemometer right there. Live look at what's going on. They've still had maximum gusts of 19.6 meters per second, which is something like just over 40 miles per hour, 45 maybe. And every so often they've been getting 10 meters per second sustained winds, which is again probably getting on towards 30 miles per hour. But looking at the actual viewpoint, looks like there's quite a bit of rain around, but in general the scene is looking pretty calm. There's another viewpoint from a location nearby, right on the shoreline. Keep watching these viewpoints for the potential storm surge, although this area is more sheltered than the ones that we were looking at earlier. Definitely, in my view, keep an eye on this one, because it is quite an exposed location. And as it is right now, if it keeps going, it is heading straight for this location here, Katsura. So it may well be on its way. Seen some water spilling over the sand there. I assume it's sand or pebbles. And certainly some interesting waves looking out there into the distance. We'll keep watching this viewpoint. Ernesto, nice name, says, will there be more storms in the Atlantic and Pacific? Whatever, I'm sure there will. But overall, I don't even know what you're talking about, to be honest, because we're definitely going to see more storms this year. We're not even at peak season yet. Peak season in the Western Pacific comes just a tad earlier than in the Atlantic. On average, the peak in the Westpac is August 31st, and in the Atlantic it's September 10th. Looking quite interesting with those waves there. Some other comments suggesting that Ampil is clearing out its eye even further. Let's get another late visible image here. Let's see how it's looking. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, just a few clouds on the inside of the eye, but they're starting to get thinner.
Switching to your screen now. The eye's getting more rounded.
Definitely. And you can also see the structures improving a little bit too. It's trying to become symmetrical, even though it did look a little more symmetrical before. But you can see also the bands are reaching higher elevations too.
Which bands? Northern side?
Western side.
Well, you've got the convection there, although in my view, it looks like it might just be starting to taper off a little bit, so
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see if we get renewed bursts over there.
well, it looks like we're almost getting one. Looks like one is trying to develop on the southeastern side. You may notice over here. Or at least that's sustaining itself.
I don't know, definitely the eastern side has taken a hit when you look at that from start to finish.
Yeah, I think that's from dry air, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just leave that running for a little bit there. I'm just going to see if we can get the latest sea surface temperatures, because we know we've been watching that quite a lot as well. As far as I know, sea surface temperatures are still pretty good where the storm is right now. Oh yeah, it is on the edge of over 30 degrees Celsius waters. It's currently over 30 degrees waters right now. A little bit to the west, it's 32. Moving further north, just along the shoreline, temperatures go down to about 27 degrees Celsius, and then once it passes by Chiba and gets parallel with Ibaraki prefecture, those temperatures really start to drop off quite quickly. I think we're now joined by Alex as well. Good evening to
Hello,
you.
Nathan.
Hi there.
Yes, good evening, Nathan.
What's your take on the tropics at large right now? Because they are definitely at large. There's a lot of storms and potential storms active.
Ernesto this morning was suffering from dry air. However, recon does support 80 knots. Ampil is being affected by the tropopause right now, so I think satellite estimates are not like what it's supposed to be right now. It's probably stronger. What do we have Ampil as right now?
We are giving it 125 miles per hour.
Looking at the satellite, I would say, yeah, it's around there, maybe. Maybe stronger because it's being affected by the tropopause right now.
I don't know. The main reason we never upgraded it any further, even though there may be cause for it, as a matter of fact, our SATEAD system that we still run in the background came up with 145 earlier.
Oh, okay.
But ADT feels to me as though it's been slow and behind the curve. It is now going with 120 miles per hour.
So you said SATEAD supports 145 and ADT supports 120?
It did earlier.
Okay. Yeah, that would give us around an average of 132 miles per hour, which would round down to 130. But I think 125 is fair.
But then obviously when we come to our decision making, we have to consider the agencies as well. I mean, JWC are lowballing it in my view, 115 miles per hour. JMA in my view are also lowballing it. They're giving it pretty much the same, pressure 950. This cannot be a 950 millibar system looking at it.
I mean, I can't really tell the pressure based on satellite, but I can certainly tell you it's stronger than 100 knots.
Let's take a look at some more imagery here, the air imagery from RAM, and see if we can take a look at what those cloud tops are doing and how high are they in those latest frames. Just watch here. This was earlier on. Eye temperature got to 15 degrees Celsius at one point. Then it got a little bit clouded over, and now it's starting to appear again. And in those latest frames, only just a few little areas of minus 70. So the cloud tops are definitely being really limited there. But of course it is at a high latitude. It's what, 33, nearly 34 degrees north now. So
Japanese radar is like the closest thing we have, like for recon.
you're hoping for recon.
Yeah, I want recon, and I think they said that they're gonna do recon on 2 storms this year, but I don't know if that happened yet. I'm not. I hope this is the latest RAM frame, because
We've got quite a few questions about the Central Pacific right now. A lot of people looking out for Hone, although we haven't had a Hone yet. That's that next storm name in the Central Pacific that we've been waiting for nearly 5 years. Nice little cameo by your guinea pig, by the way.
wait, what?
We were looking at your home screen for a second.
All right. Yeah, GFS models show quite a few Central Pacific systems, although none of them seems to support tropical storm strength, but I feel like something will develop.
Well, you do know they had 60% for that first system,
60%.
and they've just dropped it to 50%.
Is it marked on the
From NHC, yeah.
Oh,
Oh dear.
oh, nice satellite. All right, great.
They had 60% on that, and they've dropped it to 50 now.
Oh,
So they really thought that they were going to get that storm. And then, of course, you've got the Southwest Indian Ocean as well, which looks like they're going to be getting a storm now, being explicitly forecasted by Meteo
this one?
France.
this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
So-
GFS models showing it's not going to be a very strong system.
Oh no. In fact, Met France only think it will last less than 24 hours as a tropical storm.
Oh,
But nonetheless, another surprise down there, isn't it?
yep. It is, yeah.
We're just looking back at these viewpoints once again and the latest readouts. Let's just update that left-hand graphic. Is that still? I think that's 19 now. That latest one on that island. In general, winds look to still be quite calm across the coast of Chiba. A few little areas there getting 11 or 12 meter per second winds. So not really crazy winds that we're talking about yet. Tropical storm force winds start at something like I think 16 or 17 meters per second. We've got to do all these wind conversions whilst we're here because of course most of us don't use meters per second, but they do tend to use that in Japan. Yes says that you said that Recon would be in 2 Pacific typhoons this year. They want to know more about that, Alex. In fact, I'm not fully on top of that myself. I don't know what they're up to.
As for the recon thing, I just heard it from people, honestly. Like, I don't know, like,
I
what
guess
they're
you
actually
might
up
be
to.
hearing just some whole wishful thinking then.
I think
I mean, people
I've
have been
heard this
wishing
as well. I think they're doing something.
Because, well, I mean, if we get recon back in West Pacific, all of our problems will actually be solved in terms of...
Taiwan used to drop like drop zones into typhoon like a few years back, but there's not exactly a precise and accurate as what
Yeah.
the National Hurricane Center does. So perhaps that's not what people want.
We got an important question there actually about what should storm surge be in Tokyo Bay. The good news about this is that Tokyo Bay will be on the sort of away side of the storm. So obviously with the winds, they'll be pushing, if anything, water out of the bay rather than in. So I don't foresee that there'll be a massive storm surge there. There could still be a small one, obviously with the pressure drop, but I am, and maybe across part of the coastline that's facing northeast, Yokosuka, for instance. But I am not foreseeing a huge storm surge there. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but it is on the side of the storm where the winds are blowing back southwest.
Well, I'm not sure about storm surge, but when it comes to Tokyo, the Tokyo Fire Department has uploaded a little video regarding the visual of how it's looking over there. And the news is mostly just rain. It seems like there doesn't seem to be much wind in this video that they've uploaded.
Yeah, persistent
Just
rainfall.
quite a bit of rain. In fact, the sky doesn't even look particularly dark, despite the kind of torrential rain. So it's what Tokyo is experiencing right now. You could see it right now, just lots and lots of rain.
Early stages, of course. Thanks for that, Farhan. So, yep, a little bit of rain there on the ground, but certainly no wind at the moment. And that is the story right now. But the storm is still approaching, and things could change very quickly when it arrives. Now, of course, there are a few islands offshore there that are still very close to the storm. Let me double check once again the wind speeds that occurred on Hachijojima, and I know that earlier they got a maximum gust of 26 on this readout. I think they've got 2 stations on there, but I'm sure it was that island, or maybe it was the other one earlier, that got 30, which is a gust of about 65 miles per hour. I think that actually happened on the island north. Yeah?
I think JTW said was 115 knots now.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they updated already?
Yeah, because that's what it says on the ATCF.
And they usually follow the ATCF system. It'll be very interesting if
They
they've
fixed the
gone with
T60, which is Category 4.
Okay. Yeah, they have gone with that on the ATCF system. So they may be calling this 130 miles per hour shortly.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Considering what we just said a few moments ago regarding that.
Oh, let me check the latest
Regarding what
Dvorak.
GWC is going.
Does the latest Dvorak frame support that?
It's marginal right now.
There's a little bit of warm medium gray on the latest frame. So I'll go with that. Alright, yep, the Dvorak does seem to be T60.
Interesting.
Yep.
Another visible image of the storm there. This imagery updating as well. Well, really impressive intensity to this storm then, and may well be at Category 4 status. We we will probably be breaking off our coverage at the end of the hour, and we will wait for it to get closer before we do more coverage potentially, and probably some more video updates whilst we go as well. Of course,
What you're saying about the storm slowing down, then I think that would be the better thing to do here.
if indeed it is, I don't know for sure. But of course, we've got our automated stream, which we're running throughout the day as well, which we'll be redirecting you to when we finish up here. Let's take a look at some more radar imagery right now and see if there's any new additions. Again, it's hard to tell what's happening there. Is it some form of oscillation that's going on, or is it stalling, or is it turning back? Well, I don't think it's turning back. I will replace that image with one that's fixed from Japan's point of view, and that might be able to give us a better indication. Just have to find it first. Let's look closely at this imagery then. So this is a fixed view, so it's not moving about with the storm. What is that telling us? It's telling us that it did a northwest wobble and is now back to moving northwards, but has slowed down considerably in those latest frames. So it is right on the edge of that steering, clearly. That big ridge that's holding it, pinning it westwards there. And maybe it's about to let go, or maybe the storm will just continue to trudge northwards again a little bit further. But sea surface temperatures are no problem for this storm right now. 30 degrees Celsius. You gotta wonder though, how far down at this latitude, how far down those warm sea surface temperatures extend. If this storm is really slowing down, will there be upwelling concerns maybe?
Logically, you would think that, but I'm not exactly in the know regarding the exact of sea surface, sea temperature depths.
Nathan, what intensity do you think Ampil will make landfall at?
Well,
if it's
at the moment, it's not
Should
going
be
to make
emphasized.
landfall.
Should be emphasized that's an
or
if.
just like come close to Japan. I mean, because I'm looking at the GFS model right now. It seems to just scrape the island and not affect.
Yeah, and the latest GFS actually trended a little bit east. Not really seeing that at the moment.
The center just like barely misses the.
If you load up the GFS on the Hurricane tab, you'll see a proper close-up of it.
Right.
Or HWRF, they're quite similar in what they're predicting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you switch to the winds, you'll see that the hurricane force winds in this latest run stay just off the coast.
Where'd I get that?
That'll be on the left.
It'll be thermodynamics, right?
No, it will be the winds.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not very
the bottom one. This is another indicator. This is winds at height, though, I think. Yeah. Those are the winds quite away into the atmosphere.
We'll check this one. Even on 951.
And that's the ground winds there. Indicating probably going towards 50 knots in Tokyo Bay, and again the typhoon force winds just a smidge off the coast, very close there. Previous run did have it just on the coast, but is any of this really true given how it's moved a bit west of forecast?
I feel like they're lowballing this pressure thing. It's saying it's 951.
Oh, no doubt. no doubt. We went 943 earlier with a 125 mile an hour wind.
JTWC went 947. But it's not. It's. I don't think it's in the 950s by any means.
Oh, no.
I think it's lower. It's probably in the 940s.
So what we're hearing right now is that it sounds like that they've got, or at least the JTWC is going to upgrade to a Category 4. It is already borderline Category 4. That really would be quite remarkable.
Earlier in the comments, I see a few people saying that they're in the Tokyo area and that the wind is trying to pick up. And now I'm seeing latest tweet from James Reynolds or Uncut TV, a very prominent storm chaser for the Pacific. He is in Tokyo Bay, and it can clearly be seen that the wind are definitely picking up over in the Tokyo area. Although perhaps not as much as it possibly could have had the storm taken the track that was earlier predicted for it.
JMA have acknowledged that little movement there. That's their official track, and definitely a little diversion there westwards, according to that latest update. I imagine they're doing hourly position updates now. That last cone that they did clearly takes it away from the coast, but very close for comfort, and obviously that red zone contains very powerful winds. I can't remember what the red zone means now. Is that 50 knots or typhoon?
I think it's, well, what their equivalent of typhoon anyways, yeah.
Typhoon force winds.
Strong winds in that red circle there, and extending out into that cone. So still, Tokyo could receive typhoon force winds, possibly, if the storm does continue to deviate. Let's go back to some of the cameras right now. Here's some viewpoints. First of all, at Minami Boso in Chiba. And that's not much to see here. Here's another viewpoint, looking out over the water there. Again, I'm not sure whether this is on the western side, which is much more sheltered, or the more exposed eastern side. This next camera, though, is definitely on the eastern side, one that we've been watching for quite a bit. Not much change there, certainly not in the waterline yet, but some really nice looking waves. Here once again is Miura on the southern tip of Kanagawa. They've just had a higher, just beaten their wind gusts there. They've just got 20.8 meters per second. And that is 45 miles per hour. Although they're still not getting very strong sustained winds. Another viewpoint from that same area. As this impressive storm continues to progressively strengthen. Yokohama right now, visibility quite good compared to what it was earlier when they had a rainstorm or two. None right now. And back to Tokyo, still a few areas of brightness amongst all of that cloud there. Clouds moving by relatively quickly. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We'll continue to discuss this for a little while longer. We do expect that we will finish up soon and return with more coverage probably later in the day as conditions deteriorate.
when trying to see if there's any detailed information, or there's in English anyways, of the transportation cancellation. So far I've seen there's about 400 flights that has been canceled out of both Tokyo airports, and combined also at least one metro line in Tokyo that has been suspended as of, well, approaching 10 a.m. now, in Japan time. That's what I can find so far regarding that.
There's another new image. Beautiful visible imagery there of the storm. And it does look like there's a little something going on that northeastern side. There's a bit of a shadow there. It's either a very shallow part of the eye wall, or perhaps even a very much weakened eye wall, and maybe even a dry slot.
What about that thing to the south? That's just banding, right?
Big band on the south side, yeah.
Yeah, it's just okay.
Huge band. Let's see if we can get back to some more imagery. Let's just see whether it's improving or not on this infrared view. See, this is where there's a problem right now. If they're going to upgrade the storm, eastern side is continually falling. It looks like it has done a bit of an oscillation there, and it may be back moving northeast. But it's too early to say right now.
GW does often make some this interesting decision when it comes to their intensity
They're
upgrade or
often
downgrade.
too late, aren't they? When they
That does happen.
yeah.
That does happen.
Just watch this sequence again here, and just play it now. Those last few frames, real deterioration on the eastern side, not even stringing together minus 60s anymore. Alex, you're looking at that. Your take on it?
Probably still a borderline case. The Vorak does support T60 though, but I don't know anything about like microwave. Like if I can get like a microwave imagery or something, maybe I can take on it. But as of right now, I don't have any in the latest frame. Just like in the latest microwave frame, just missed the storm center entirely. So I don't really have anything to say for it other than it's a borderline case right now. It could either be 110 or 115 knots, honestly.
Is there anything you'd like to say about Ernesto right now?
Ernesto, I mean, recon supports 80 knots with 103 flight level wind at 700 millibars and 73 knot SFMRs, if I remember correctly, which would just be 80 knots. But as I said before this morning, it was suffering from dry air. I haven't checked on the storm yet. I will do that in a moment.
Well, they've just been into it again, and they did southeast, northwest, southeast. Winds aren't as strong in that area. Northeast is definitely strongest right now.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the so what is this part of Ernesto on my screen here? This
Man,
part.
that looks so sloppy on your screen.
No, is this this is not the eye, right? I hope that's not the eye.
What? Which part?
This part right here.
Oh yeah, that's the eye.
Bro.
Part of it.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let's look at the
It's a big
microwave
eye
here.
if it comes out.
Oh, it's still developing, I guess. That's my guess on it. It's still developing. I want to see the microwave imagery.
But it has been closing back up again.
Oh, well, that's the latest frame.
So Alex is looking at microwave imagery of Ernesto there, and you can see
that is not the
long ago
that
was
is
that?
not That is not the latest frame. That does not match whatever this is showing.
Yeah, because that was about 5 hours ago, 4 hours ago.
Yeah. but that's I'm not really big like expert at microwave imagery, but it's just like whatever this part is, there's just like an opening here.
Well, obviously, it's still got a massive dry air gap right there.
Yeah, this is a dryer gap. Okay.
It's been prevalent in this storm for a couple of days now.
Yeah.
It's what's prevented this from becoming a major, that's for sure.
Yep. I actually thought I would wake up to a jet interaction storm. I thought Ernesto would go through a jet interaction, but I guess not. But yeah. I don't think Ernesto will become a major, like, as of now, unless conditions get better. But
yeah, well, it's not being forecasted anymore.
Oh, it's not. What was the last NHC forecast?
They're going for a high-end Category 2, but it happened pretty soon. Before it gets Bermuda, then weakening again.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to become a Category 2.
2?
I don't think it will be a Category 2. As of now, I don't think so. Maybe like a low-end Cat 2, maybe 85 knots.
You really don't think it will get to Category 2? It's nearly
No,
there
I
now.
don't. No, I don't think it'll become. I don't think it'll become 95 knots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, certainly interesting if they do call out a Category 4 then. Typhoon Ampil, this is what we're talking about now. Of course, you may remember at one point we were staring into the abyss when we were looking at Typhoon Faxai back in 2019. That was a Category 4, headed straight for Tokyo, miraculously weakened a lot. Still a strong Category 2 by the time it got to Tokyo Bay.
Can this storm be compared to Tokage of last year? Because that was also like a major around like high latitudes.
Not sure.
Did I say last year? I meant 2022, not last year.
Of course, the difference with this storm compared to a lot of the others that have affected the Tokyo area, this one is further east, and so it will be the weaker side that will be passing over Tokyo. So obviously better news. There'll still be strong winds, very strong winds, maybe even typhoon force in Tokyo if this northward movement continues, and heavy rainfall, which will amount potentially up to 200 or 250 millimeters. And of course we're also watching out for a potential storm surge there too. Let's have a quick look again at some of these camera angles. There's some chunky waves moving in there at Katsura. Back to this camera at Minami-Boso, which is the closest that we've got to the center of the storm. We're not too much going on here at this location anymore by the looks of things, at least not for the time being, but we do expect more severe weather. Probably raining still at that location right now. So a major situation is what we're looking at. Potentially a Category 4 on the way to making a very close pass to Japan. Could it still make landfall? It is not absolutely out of the question. It will start to turn northeasterly very soon, but the big question is exactly when. No idea.
I feel like there is a possibility that that if I were to argue that it was not Category 4, I would probably argue that it was there was land interaction and whatnot. That You know, like Ampil, just like its interaction with Japan just like stopped preventing it from reaching Category 4 status. That is what I will argue if I were not to argue Category 4 for it.
I don't think it's improving on satellite imagery.
Nah, it's just I feel like that's just a tropopause, but I mean storms like for example like Hinamnor, that was also being affected by the tropopause, but it had a very, very good central dense overcast or CDO.
Look at that latest image of yours. North and east side. There's a big problem there.
Oh yeah. Maybe yeah. In this case, like I just want to pay attention to how the storm structure looks. As of right now, I don't think. Yeah, I wouldn't really call it a Category 4.
It looks like it might be starting to fracture up there. Let's hope so. We can't be fully sure yet.
It is once like this slot right here. I think once like maybe a few more hours, I think this will start to deteriorate. I mean, I think it is deteriorating now. Or starting to deteriorate, not deteriorating now, just like starting to do that. The west side is still holding on to negative, I think that is negative 60-degree cloud tops. However, though, that's the west side. The east side is just, it's starting to die off.
Alright.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be finishing up for now. We will be back in due course, I'm sure. We'll be doing regular updates on social media and on the channel. We'll probably have another video update coming up on Ampil fairly soon. And maybe more live coverage as it gets closer to Japan. It is on its way. We'll be back with more coverage as and when, but now over to the automated streaming service.